A very warm welcome and a very good evening to all the teachers who have joined us today for this Gurushala Samvad. I, Alina Kazmi, on behalf of the entire Gurushala team, welcome you to today's Samvad. In today's discussion, we will be talking about the importance of learning from community for students. And we will also be exploring the skills that teachers need in order to become a 21st century teacher. So, before proceeding in this session, let's know about Gurushala. Gurushala is an initiative of Indus Stars Limited and Vodafone Idea Foundation, and it is implemented by Pratham Education Foundation. So, before we proceed any further in today's session, I would like to take a moment and introduce our expert for today. Welcome, sir. So, here we have with us Professor Ramanujan. So, I would like to take this moment to introduce our expert. Professor Ramanujan is a Dean of IFIM Law School. He has also been a Chief Knowledge Officer at QS, where he was instrumental in designing 17 subject indicators to rate universities and colleges in India. He was also among the scholars invited by the President of India to write a book on the governance of higher education institution, which culminated in the book published by LexisNexis titled The President of India and the Governance of Higher Education Institutions. A very warm welcome, sir, and thank you so much for joining with us. It is a pleasure for us.
Thank you, Alina, and I'm really looking forward for this interaction. And welcome to all the teachers. I think it's indeed a great initiative by Gurushala to host me today and also raise some important questions. Let me articulate and set the context right before I invite the teachers or the panelists, co-panelists to come and ask me questions. We are indeed at a very blink of a pandemic. Things are absolutely not going as per what the education institutions want, or the mental health of the students who are trying to educate themselves from home is also really in need of a revamp, or I would say a discussion. So I think whatever ideas we discuss today, I hope it will be helpful for teachers. It will be helpful for Gurushala to probably implement some of these ideas, so that as we say that pandemics will come and go, but learning should not stop. So how do we emphasize on the importance of learning, and how do we keep our continuity going? And human race is a very a strong, I would say, body which doesn't give up so easily. So I'm sure COVID will lose. It is just a matter of time, but I think it is important for us to stay safe, stay at home, and continue to learn. So let me come to the topic for today. There is a huge emphasis. We are talking about new age institutions. We're talking about new age schools. We're talking about new age universities. We're talking about, Generation Z, the kind of students who are actually trying to, enter from school education to higher education. We're talking a lot, but at the same time, it is very important for all of us to need, at least be very clearly visible, and things are happening around us, and it is important for us to actually take a step back and observe, what are we preparing our students for, and what is the challenge for the students going forward? Are we doing the right things? Is this actually the preparing the students, for what I call as the 21st century, or the new age, which is really radically changing as we speak. I have two kids at home, so whatever I'm going to reflect now is also keeping that, the fact that I'm also a parent. I also understand how this impact is happening, and how we as teachers could play a role in making it very important that whatever we teach is relevant, and how we teach is also relevant. So let me give you an example and a story which is reflective about this entire presentation I'm going to make. So this is about a story of a student who comes from Dalit family, who was preparing, and whose ideology was to get into a law school. There is one very important entrance exam in India. If any student wants to crack the law school, it's called the CLAT exam. So this kid in 2016 um, cracks the CLAT exam. 70,000 students write, and only the top 80 students actually get into National Law School. National Law School Bangalore is one of the most prestigious institutions when it comes to educating students in law. And this kid gets into the law school, and after the first year is okay. The second year he starts failing in the law school. Third year he gets into a depression, and fourth year he actually no end of the third year actually commits suicide within the campus premises. And there were a lot of articles that were being actually written, contemplated, discussed. What I wanted to tell you is, even though this kid was genius in cracking the CLAT exam and getting into a world class institution, National Law School Bangalore, but what got him into National Law School Bangalore was not the skills that was actually required for him to continue to, I would say, pursue his education in National Law School Bangalore. These are two different things. What actually happened to this kid? You have to know that CLAT as an exam tests students on general knowledge, mathematics, legal reasoning. All of these are basically the system that we have been producing our kids for long, long time, which is very, very, very memory based, and very, you can actually memorize the GK questions and you can get the answers right. It's all about testing your memory. But when you actually get into the law school, the skills that actually got you into the law school are not the skills that are actually going to be helpful to you to actually survive the course of education. So this basically caters, questions, the ideology that are we preparing our students, right to actually face the world, and are we actually giving them good skills, be it at the school level or at the universities level, to be for them to be employable, at the school level for them to enter into higher education. So this case was a case which I'm not been able to come over this case because it raises some very important fundamental questions, which I think as educators we need to understand. Many a time, we say that if you are good enough to crack the exam, you should be good enough to come out of the law school successfully. No. So that is what takes me. Why is it so important, at least in this 21st century, that we train, we give the skills to the students? Now, if you have to give the skills to the students, I think it is also important that teachers, also get acquainted or understand the importance of the skills. So, what are these skills are we talking about, and why are these skills important? Now, we are talking about three very, very important broad skills, which are learning and innovation skills. Learning and innovation skills as further three categorizations. It could be critical thinking, problem solving, communication, collaboration, creativity, innovation. So, how do we integrate these skills into the mainstream curriculum? I think is the role that educators and teachers increasingly have to play, to make sure that students not just go out of the school, but go out of the school with some basic skills that could be put to test. When they are finding challenges like the example which I gave. The second one is the digital literacy skills. I think if you look at the Fortune 500 companies in 20 or 2000, top 10 were oil digging companies. You go today, 2020, you look at the Fortune top 10 companies, they're all digital companies. You name Facebook, you talk about Amazon, you talk about Google, you talk the top 10 are all digital companies. There's a transformation that is happening. So data is data and being digital, and digital literacy becomes really, really critical. So what do you mean by digital literacy skills? That is information literacy, media literacy, information and communication technologies. We call it as ICT, and how these things actually become really important for the teachers, so that if you are equipped with the skills, then the transition of the skills to the student also becomes that much more effective and efficient. The last skills, which are again which are broadly categorized under the 21st century skills, are called as a career and life skills. It is very important for us to talk about social and cross-cultural interactions, productivity, accountability, flexibility. Flexibility is very, very important. I think going forward, the next generation is going to be successful only if you are flexible, not only in the way we want to conduct our classes, but also in the way we want to assess students. It's I think the flexibility word is going to be really the key, and I'll speak about this more as we go. But I will now let Alina ask me more questions, but I just thought that I should just reflect this and set the context going, so that I could keep exchanging these ideas as and when I go forward.
Right. So, as Professor Ramanujan started with a very interesting example, and then he goes on to explain, about the various skills that are required in today's times. So, my question is related to a very important skill that is, our teachers are saying that it has become a very important skill, especially in these times. So, here we are talking about the technology related skills. So, my question is that only that as technology has become a very important skill in these days, so what is the effective and sound way of using technology? Because we also know that sometimes parents also come up with some of the concerns, especially parents of younger kids. So how do we as teachers use it in a judicious manner, and similarly convey that to our students as well?
Thank you for asking this question. You have to know we as educators, we did not integrate with technology well. Corona has been a catalyst in actually making us do that. The only way education is happening now, and it is going to happen in the future, is through a hybrid model where there is going to be F2F classes, but mind you, there will also be online classes, because with the kind of the COVID wave we are looking at, I think future will be important only if we know how to integrate well with technology. When I'm talking about technology, you have to know that some ways, in a way, the entire education online has been dismissed. We have not spent our time in learning how to make effective teaching even through online medium. You have to know this. Mind you, even before we hit Corona, Harvard in 1997 introduced what is called as the Harvard Extension School, and they started making a policy that 20% of the courses which will be audited by students or attended by students will be online, because it gave a lot of flexibility for the Harvard universities to get faculty from different parts of the world, and the space and the time were not restricting anybody to come and teach. I think technology, if you can embrace as educators well, it will only improve the collaborative teaching. Collaborative efforts of teaching will significantly improve. And I think that is the key. But mind you, you cannot try what you're doing on F2F model and just reverse it to technology, online model. It is not going to work. You have to build content. You have to build tools. You have to build effective polls if required, to make sure that the interactive learning is still possible online. You have only three things you need to fix: how how to fix the learning outcomes, and how you can fix these learning outcomes even when it is online. Second question is, why, right? Why question is also really important. Why basically answers your question, why online, and how something can be taught over online. And when question answers you basically when and how you need to assess, even while the student is actually making an effort learning online. So technology is definitely a skill. And I have to tell you, when I was looking at some important aspects, I think it is high time that the schools start getting integrated. What is called as a learning LMS systems needs to be integrated even at the school level, which helps not only in just teaching and learning, but also in the effective way of what are the readings that you're giving to the students, and how you can also trace how many of them actually have opened it, how many of them are reading it. So you have to enhance technology both in the administrative side as well as on the teaching side. And I think the schools and the educators who can raise their level and get themselves technologically trained in the coming years will be immensely successful, when compared to teachers who think that this is just away with and it is going to go away. No. So I appeal to all of you that technology in education is not going to go away. Even if you look at NEP, even if you look at the new education policy, they are increasingly saying that we have to increase certain aspects of online education. And I think going forward, 20, 30 hours in a month, I think every school or every university needs to make sure that there is continuity in education happening, even when the F2F model is going to be in existence. Keeping that in mind, I would appeal that take some courses or training programs, or probably Gurushala can even organize one technological know-how of how to use online platforms for teachers, so that they get trained in this, and therefore there is the teaching does not suffer. If the teaching suffers, the learning suffers.
Right. So, thank you so much for taking this question up. I would also request all the teachers that, Sir is sharing so many things with us here today. So, if you have any question or any observations or comments, or, any experiences related to what we are talking about, you want to share with us, so feel free to drop a comment in the comment section, and we'll take up your questions on screen, and our expert for the day, Professor Ramanujan, will address those. So moving ahead, my next question is that, we are talking about these skills, and we also started, discussing about NEP. So I think some of our teachers might be curious to know more about it. So my question here is that, how is NEP incorporating these skills that we were just discussing? So if we can, throw some light on that.
See, NEP is making it very clear to schools that you have to really build the students emotionally strong. There was a Lancet study of 2012, and I think as educators, we all have to go through that study and read that study very carefully. In 2012, the Lancet, which is one of the world-renowned medical journals, very clearly said that the highest number of people who actually commit suicide actually are from India, and for the age group of 15 to 17. You need to know that that is basically because of the board exams. That is basically because of the kind of competitiveness we have created on these things, and also the fact that schools do not focus on emotional upbringing of child. When I say that it is important for people, or for teachers and educators to understand that when there is a competition, there will be people who can observe that pressure, and there will be people who cannot observe that pressure. So the idea is that how do we integrate this importance of emotional intelligence, or emotionally making this student stronger. You need to be creating self-awareness, social awareness. Mind you, there are beautiful studies which we all have to study. Howard Gardner, who's America's renowned psychologist, wrote a very interesting book called Multiple Intelligence Theory. You have to read that book. The multiple intelligence theory says that every student has more than one intelligence. Unfortunately, exam test only one intelligence. So students who fail that exam are not failing. They're failing in the assessment that we are conducting. There might be other intelligences where they might be really successful, maybe in gardening, maybe in music, maybe in storytelling. It is important for us to identify those intelligences and create that emotional strength in the kids, so that they know that this, even if they don't do well in the exams, it's not the end of the world. But they also need to be emotionally groomed. That the strength that they get. We don't focus on emotional training of children in our schools. If we are focusing, it's very good. But how much we are focusing and the length in which we can focus can considerably increase. And how this can get integrated with the mainstream curriculum is also very, very key. How much of personality enhancements programs we do. I think it'll be important that NEP is bringing these things to the schools and saying that it is not just the kind of results that the schools deliver, but it is also how emotionally and how psychologically you build the child in the school is what it would matter in the long run. So you have to know, today class 12 results are redundant, to be very honest. If you have to do engineering, you have to write JW. If you have to write medical, you have to write NEET. If you have to get into law, you have to write CLAT. If you have to get into BBA, you have to write UGAT. So, after class 12 results, what happens to the student who gets 99 but he doesn't, doesn't crack CLAT? He doesn't get into a law school. So you have to know that, rather than just focusing on the exam results, if you can focus on his emotional and mental well-being, I think in the long run, I think it'll be really impactful. And I think that is how you will build the 21st century, I would say, employees. So I'll give another narrative and a story, but I would stop here.
Right. So, sir, here is highlighting some of the very interesting aspects to it, and I think raising some poignant questions also here that we as educators need to ponder upon. So, you were talking about testing different intelligences. So, my next question is a little bit related to that only. So, we know that in these times, students are mostly at their homes, and they are spending most of their time with their family, with their parents. So here community learning from the community plays an important role. So my question is basically this, that how we as educators can encourage students to get involved in small activities or anything to learn from the community.
See, the 21st century students have to deal with two words: sustainability, and the other word is um, community. These two are inseparable. I think the only way today, we are able to fight this entire COVID is that small, communities coming together and making sure that that particular place is actually vaccinated. Vaccination is available for them. Those particular, I really like the story where I read that the resident welfare associations are coming together and trying to create and protect. That how maids are entering into that, they go to RT-PCR test, they make sure that everybody who's coming into the apartment is not infected. I really like the way community is actually coming together to fight this entire COVID pandemic. So sustainability is another word which I said. So you have to know that how do we induce this community learning. Unfortunately, as much as I'm a big fan of the generation Z, I also see that we as millennials, we are all nucleus family. Even though we are in the same city where our parents are there, we tend to live outside, and have a different, house. So we are a nuclear family, so that is how our work, that is how our agenda has been. But I think COVID has really challenged that agenda, has absolutely shaken you from that. Because if even one person in the house gets affected, you don't know how to handle the situation, because all this while there was a community agenda which was actually taking precedence, and therefore as a community we survived. But today, as individuals, as small units, we are struggling. You have to know this really needs to get integrated at the school level. I'm a big fan of community learning. Unfortunately, this comes under the practice-based approach, experiential approach, part of the learning in the school curriculum. How much of exposure we give students to travel to small communities, understand how whatever you learn, how it fits into the community, has always been the key. But again, we have to really make some solid inroads when it comes to community learning, because I feel be it sanitation or hygiene, health or nutrition, we tend to learn more about these aspects only when we go through and do a community learning. I'll give you a classic example, and you have to listen to the story. One of the classic stories I've read about community learning. So Ford Foundation is one of the biggest foundations in the world. In 1960, they basically were trying to build houses for slum dwellers. So they built this beautiful, nice house. They thought that before they finished the construction, they would go and take feedback about the people, who potentially would go and live in that house. So they went to the men and asked, so you have this beautiful living room, you have this beautiful, we are planning a beautiful kitchen, we are planning a beautiful toilet. What men's, said, oh wow, very good. All of these are fine. For them, getting a house itself was a big deal. So Ford Foundation was not very sure. So they said, okay, let us call all the women, in the house. Let's get them into a room. Let's ask them this feedback. So when they posed this question, what do you think? The women community said Ford Foundation that ah, this entire plan is useless, and what you guys are doing is of no use to us. So the Ford Foundation, which had a lot of very smart people, who are the big brains at that time, started pondering, what are these ladies saying? We are building such beautiful houses to them. What are they actually saying? So they asked, they went deep, said what? They said, sir, understand, you're building this house, right? So if you give us a house with an attached bathroom and a washroom, my husband tomorrow will sell this house, take whatever money it comes, and he will take us again to a slum, and he will make sure that he uses that money to drink. He says, so what? He says, sir, give us common bathroom and common washrooms. He said, why? He said, sir, those houses, the good people who can buy houses will never buy a house which has common bathroom and washroom, for 3 apartments or 4 apartments or 5 apartments. We can continue to use that facility. Understand this. Many a times, community learning teaches you, certain feedback, certain things, which, we always assume that, we get to know. Only when you go to the community, they always give you this wonderful feedback. Ford Foundation changed the entire plan of the housing they had to build. And they said for all 10 houses or 5 houses, there will be common washrooms and common bathrooms, for which people are continuing to stay there and still live in those houses. Had this feedback not gone to Ford, these houses would have been bought by the rich, and these people would have been, thrown out of their houses, and they would have started, using this facility. So what I'm trying to say is, I think it is important for all of us to embrace community learning and the importance of community learning, and I'm a big fan of that.
Right. So, thank you so much for sharing this interesting story with us and our teachers. On this note, we can see that our teachers are also sharing some comments in the comment section with us. So, we can see that Chandni Dabral ma'am has shared that, she's saying that absolutely, sir, Corona has become a catalyst in technology education, and there's no doubt online education came into existence and will remain there, so we all have to be well equipped with learning. Yes, indeed, ma'am, and we can see that teachers are sharing other such suggestions as well, so feel free to share. And we can also see that here is a comment for sir, that nice example. So sir, here we would take our last question, that talking of community learning, can you elaborate a bit that how is community learning included in the na- how is community learning included in NEP? So if you can explain that.
See, NEP doesn't expressly say, how much you have to teach. They're saying that it is important for the schools to teach. So, if we go back, we had NCC, NSS, we had, Red Cross. We are slowly moving away from putting students into these clubs. I think if you're not having such clubs, start eco clubs, start some community clubs, which will actually, even if at this time, even if you can't do, give them some projects, community-based projects that they can, without leaving their compound, do some projects, right? Like what kind of water preservation you're doing, what kind of environmental, what happens to the medical waste that you're collecting, what happens to people use masks, so what are you doing with those masks, use masks. So put some questionnaires, let them come with some unique ideas and problems that that community is facing. I was reading this very important story, that how washrooms which are attached in the same apartment actually is leading to a spreading of corona. So how these things can be stopped. You have to do a self-auditing community study. So give those studies, let them come with these unique problems to address their community first, and then if that is successful in their community, it could become a state subject and a national subject at some point of time, right? So you have to start giving them community projects even while they are on online education, and those projects could be small projects, those projects could be projects which they can actually sit and do, and therefore they can come with the feedback. Once you start with the F2F, please open up eco clubs, please make sure that at least in a semester or in every 6 months they get to visit a village, organize some projects involving district development, because we all have to understand the importance of water, importance of health, importance of hygiene. Otherwise, we take everything for granted, and I think corona is teaching us that you can't take everything for granted. So I think I would stop here, but I think schools have a lot of opportunities to induce community learning, and I think going forward, community learning is going to be a key. And if Alina gives me a chance, I want to narrate a short story. again, which reflects and captures community learning really, really well. I don't know how much time I have, but if she permits, I will just quickly narrate that story. This
Sir, please go ahead. Please go ahead. Yeah.
So we know this 26/11 Mumbai terrorist attack, right? Where there were a group of terrorists who rampaged the Mumbai city. They went into the Taj Hotel and they bombed the hotel and they killed a lot of people. India did not do the study. The Harvard Business School came back to India wanting to do a study, and they were asking basically this question. Um, you have to note that none of the stewards in the hotel ran away from that place on that day, seeking to be protected, but they stood by their customers and they sacrificed their lives. This was the most shocking thing for Harvard to note. And they went and did a study. And they got to know that Taj, which is Tata's, had a very interesting recruitment policy. Tata's never recruited the most brilliant and the topper in the class. No. They went and spoke to the teachers from the ground level, from the primary level to the secondary level, asking what are the qualities this student has. And give me a student who will stand by the qualities and values and cultures. And those were the students who were recruited. And for these people, it was not the rank that got them to Tata's, it was their qualities, and they knew that why they were being recruited. That was basically customer satisfaction. So they stood by each customer, not running away for their life, but proved one thing very important: what community learning can actually make a difference. Then the results in the exams can make a difference. So that is a kind of uniqueness we need to create in our students. Imbibe those values, imbibe those culture. That doesn't come from inside classroom, it comes only from community learning.
Right. So thank you so much for sharing yet another interesting story with us. So I think on this note, we all have understood that, exams and tests are equally important, but what is equally important here is learning from the community, and sir has shared some interesting perspective and interesting examples and stories with us. So thank you so much, sir, for sharing your insights and views with our teachers. And so on this note, if you want to share any concluding notes with our teachers or any message that you want to give, so please.
Nothing, I would say that be very empathetic and sympathetic towards your students. If they're not submitting your assignments, if you're not submitting it's okay. I think these are really difficult times. I think it is very important that we make sure that during these difficult times, we do not further affect their mental, state. I think if possible, please do organize wellness workshops, organize, just general discussions, so that the mental well-being of the child. I'm really afraid. I can't see my children to be locked up like this for 2 years inside the house. It is difficult, and I think it is really important to make the teaching more interactive, more interesting, and more I would say more available to them when they are interested to learn, rather than having really fixed and restricting the learning to happen within the space and time. So keep the word flexibility in mind. Understand that they are your children, and these are times where everybody, child, parent, and teachers, educators, in fact even schools, are going through a tough time. So I'm very sure in 3 or 4 months time we will be out of this situation. But I'm again afraid, if we take things for granted, if we do not do what we are supposed to be doing, there'll be another way, and that is going to make our life more difficult. So I think we need to uh, install the word responsibility in all of them. And I wish that we all come out of Corona and give better, opportunity for students to move out of the house at this point, which is really, really difficult for all the kids. Thank you so much, Alina, and thank you, Gurushala, for hosting me. If I have said something I should not have said, I'm really sorry, because it's just a flow and what I strongly believe in. But I really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. It was a pleasure to get involved in this session with you. And I hope our teachers also learned a lot of new things. So thank you so much for joining us. So, on this note, let's move on to our second part of the session here, where we will be sharing some suggested activities with our teachers. So, as you can see, and on our screen here, like some of our teachers were also sharing with us that, some of the activities or some of the suggestions that our teachers can share with students or parents of students during these times to enhance the spirit of community learning. So here, as you can see on our screen, we will be sharing some examples, some activities of learning science, English, vocabulary, different subjects through these activities. So let's move ahead and look at our first activity. As you can see, the name of this activity is basically identifying verbs from the newspaper. So as the title suggests, in this activity, you basically have to ask your students to get a newspaper. It can be a newspaper of the day, or it can be an old newspaper as well, which students can read easily. So the activity basically here is that you have to encourage students to find difficult words or verbs sorry, or adjectives or nouns and pronouns from these newspapers and circle them in different colors. So for example, for all the pronouns, for example, a a student is taking page number 2 of the newspaper and encircling that newspaper for this activity. So for all the pronouns, the student can use a green marker. For all the adjectives, the student can use a pink marker. So, and the student can also note down these. So this is one quick activity that would not only keep students involved in a productive activity, but also it will keep their minds running on the concepts of English grammar, like verbs, adjectives, nouns, pronouns, etc. Now, moving ahead, we have another activity here, which is best out of waste. This is a very common activity suggested by a lot of teachers. And this makes complete sense in the time that we are in, where we can encourage our students to make use of the waste materials lying around in the house. We can ask them to identify a few waste materials, collect them, and then brainstorm a bit that how they are going to utilize those materials and make uh, an object or a scrapbook or anything out of it. So this will not only enhance creativity of the particular student, but also, help students to utilize the resources available at their hand, other than just going out and buying new resources. So this is another activity that you can encourage. This can also be used as an additional activity for different subjects. I will also, later in the presentation, I will also share this one another example. So here is that example. This is about gardening. So as we know that gardening is something that mostly students are usually engaged in, and their parents also get involved with them. So here you just have to encourage your students to create a segmented garden. It can also be a medicinal garden, but with a lot of herbs, and seeds available at home can be used, like seeds of tomatoes, etc. And students can also document the growth of the plant. They can create a small chart where they're documenting the growth by week by week. So these are some ways through which this activity of gardening can be shared with students. Then moving ahead, this is another interesting activity, or we can also call it a game. This is an activity that can be shared with students, and it can also be shared with parents of students, and you can encourage them to play this with their students. You can ask your students to keep their eyes away from the mobile screen for a while and create a story using cardboard forts and display a storytelling session for the family on the weekend. So here, what you can customize this activity according to the resources available at home, but largely the idea here is that you can use resources available at your home, like a cardboard or a discarded pillow or a bed sheet, and you can make a fort out of it. You can make an object out of it and narrate a story around this. This is activities like these have been very fruitful in encouraging the creativity and analytical skills of the students. This will help students to think more about the words that the student will be using while framing a story, but also what kind of a story does he want to narrate. And if as teachers you are going to you will get a chance to listen to these stories, so you will also get an insight into what the child is thinking at that moment, what is his mood that is going on at that moment. So this will help in a lot of ways to the teachers and to parents of students as well. This can also be used as a role play. Student can for example, a student has created a particular fort, so the student can play a character of a king or a queen of that particular fort. So this is a very fantasy games are very interesting in that sense, where creativity and vocabulary of students are enhanced. Moving ahead, this is another interesting activity. I'm sure a lot of our teachers have heard about this. This is family tic tac toe. So you don't need anything for this. You basically need a paper and a pen, which I'm sure all of our teachers and students might be having at this time. So here you just have to encourage parents and their students to take some time for each other and to connect and play a game of a nice short tic tac toe, or also some board games that are available at house, because this will allow some interaction. Because the during this time we all are living together, but sometimes we all are involved in our own activities, our own classes, our own offices. So this will give some time of family interaction, and some conversation, some interesting conversations can also be started here. So this was another example. Then this is one of my personal favorite examples: origami. Origami is something that yet another activity in which you do not require a lot of resources. You simply need some papers, and if possible some colorful papers. And you have a lot of videos available online teaching how to make teaching origami basically. So here you just have to encourage your teach students to get a set, for example, let's say 7 to 8 pieces of paper, like a square shaped paper, and they have to understand the dimensions and the geometric shapes and make different figures. So this is a very interesting activity which will keep students busy, and this will help them develop a new hobby also, apart from the ones that they already have. And this is something I would say that can be done by our teachers as well, because this is I would say that during online classes also, teachers and students can do this activity collectively, where in a 5 minute break, teacher can quickly take a colorful paper and demonstrate and making a figure out of a paper, and students can also take a paper and repeat what the teacher is doing. So at the end of that 5 minute break activity, students and teachers are making one colorful figure, and they can also write a message on it, a message of the day or a lesson of the day that they have learned. So these are small breaks which will help students enhance their skills and also work on their hobbies. And also like we were talking, the spirit of community learning can also be somewhere enhanced through these activities. Moving towards the end, this is another interesting activity where students can make instruments available from the objects at the home. So this is called DIY, do it yourself instruments. So in this, what you have to do is you basically, teachers have to encourage their students to accumulate some utensils from their houses. And they can also take some waste materials like some bottles, some pans, or some objects which will basically make noise. So they have to use pointed object, as in a stick that can be used to bang at the utensils, and they can create different objects. They can use different objects and different utensils to create different noise. And this will for example, an interesting concept is how the kinds of sounds are there, how a sound is created. So such concepts can be taught using these activities, and these are such concepts which enhance students curiosity as well. Students are very curious to know about these. So this is just another, you can use this as a brainstorming activity as well during your sessions, if the materials are readily available. Then moving ahead, another activity is interviewing your family members. So in this, you basically have to choose one day or one event that is happening within a family, around which you can interview all the family members involved. So for example, you can interview your elders available in the family. This is for students. As teachers, you can encourage your students to do this activity and share their notes next day in the class. For example, you can encourage them to interview the elders of the family. For example, let's say the grandparents who have a lot to share in this. They can share their stories of their college times, of their school times, and their experiences, which will not only add value to the students life as well, but also some lifelong lessons will be shared at that time. And then after that, the student can share the story quickly in the next day's class as well. Then here, our last activity, suggested activity here, is family meditation time. So as we know that, here we have, during these times, all the doctors and mental health specialists, everybody is suggesting that we should keep meditating. We should definitely give at least 5 to 10 minutes a day to meditation. So here, a family meditation time can help students and everybody available in the house to dedicate some time for meditation. So in this, you simply have to you can ask your students to maintain a chart where they have to tick mark every day that they are meditating, and they can also write names of the family members that they are meditating with. So this will also make students life more disciplined, but also it will give all the benefits that meditation usually has. So here were some activities that we suggest to our teachers. These activities can be shared with students, and I'm sure that our teachers who have joined us today, they will definitely use 2 to 3 activities from this list and incorporate with their students. Teachers can also use these activities as a break during online classes. So I hope our teachers had find these activities useful. On this note, before we end our session, we have a very interesting point to add to our teachers. So I will just take our teachers to Gurushala platform. So as you can see on my screen, here I am on Gurushala. So for this, you simply have to visit www.gurushala.co. After visiting, you have to log in to Gurushala. As you can see, I have already logged in. So in this, we have a very interesting resource for all our teachers who have joined us today. So I will just quickly zoom in a bit and show. So as you can see, this is the home page of Gurushala. You have to go to the section of course modules. In this section, you can see a lot of course modules are available here. In this, you can simply, either you can scroll down, or you can also type in the search bar sustainable. So as you can see, after I have searched for the term sustainable, here are some course modules that are available. So this is one. Sustainable living with community is one module that is very interesting, and we encourage all our teachers to enroll for this module. And this will help them give a perspective on, how they can encourage their students for community learning, and a lot of new things can also be learned from this module. So in order to enroll for this module, you just simply have to click on it. As you can see on my screen, a screen like this, a detailed page like this will open, and you have to click on enroll for free. When you will click on enroll for free, you will get 10 points, and then you simply have to click on expand all and start watching the video. So I will leave this to all our teachers, and I hope that our teachers, after today's session, they will take some time out, and I'm sure they want to know more about community learning, about sustainable living, as Professor Ramanujan was also saying. So, on this note, thank you all for joining us today. We hope that today's session was very fruitful to you. And thank you, teachers, for sharing your suggestions and comments and experiences with us in the comment section. Here, I would also thank Dr. I would also thank Professor Ramanujan for joining us today. And on this note, I would encourage our teachers to fill the attendance form for today. This will mark as your attendance for the day. So our chat team will also be sharing the link of the attendance form in the comment section. And we also have a button below the video. You simply have to click on that and fill the attendance form. So, thank you so much for joining with us today. And do fill the attendance form and definitely check out the course module of Sustainable Living with Community. Once again, thank you.